Hello everybody, today's video is going to be the last installment of my Hunchback of Notre Dame series that I've been doing. I've recently read the Hunchback of Notre Dame and fell in love with the book, so I've done 2 videos previously of describing the main storyline of the book and going through and basically giving you the story as it relates to Disney's retelling. This video, I am going to be going through and actually not retelling the story again, but I'm going to be breaking down the characters from the 1939 version of the Hunchback of Notre Dame. So if you're curious as to what the actual storyline is, you are going to want to go back and watch my part 1 and part 2 comparing the book to the Disney movies. I am going to be going through and just sort of highlighting the different main characters of the movie and how close that movie was with their characters to the book. We are going to be looking at Esmerelda, Quasimodo, Frollo, the main 3, but then we're also going to be talking a little bit about the gypsy leader, Frollo's younger brother, and also my favorite character, a poet named Pierre Gringois. So before I get into any characters, I think one of my biggest issues with this movie is the fact that the entire focus of this movie sort of revolves around the printing press, which doesn't make sense at all. The book does dedicate about a chapter to the printing press, and in that chapter it talks about how the printed art will one day overtake the structural art. The book will one day destroy the building. It's a very interesting chapter. Highly recommend you get this book and read it. But for some reason, this movie decided that it needed to make the printing press like the central theme of this story, which does not make any sense at all. So starting right off with Esmerelda, this movie actually does a really good job of capturing her character for the most part. They definitely captured more of her modesty and her timidness toward people she didn't know. They captured how quickly infatuated she became with Phoebus. Quasimodo, they almost hit the nail on the head. Physically wise, they captured his sort of essence a little more. They definitely showed the cruelty of the people toward Quasimodo more, and they also showed more of his love and infatuation with Esmeralda more. The gypsy leader, Copinol, also made an appearance in this movie, which I thought was really fun. His character was basically spot on with the book. He's very sure of himself, very self-righteous. He's not a big character in the movie at all, but I appreciated the fact that he was actually included, and also just the fact that the Court of Miracles, where the gypsies lived, that was included a lot more in the movie, which is also accurate to the book. So now for my favorite character, Pierre Gringois. The first, I would say, third of this movie, they get Gringois' character pretty accurate. After that, it starts twisting into their own creative liberties. The movie opens up with Pierre Gringois trying to lead this play for the people of Paris during the Feast of Fools. In his mind, being the dramatic poet that he is, he thinks that this 4-hour-long play that he created about these 4 gods is the biggest masterpiece the world has ever seen. He is bursting, wanting to share it with the people. But while it's actually going on, the people are getting very bored of it because it is only a masterpiece in his head. Pierre sulks off and ends up finding Esmerelda that night walking the streets of Paris, and he decides to follow her. And during his following her, he comes upon the Court of Miracles, is immediately captured because he is not a gypsy, and they're going to kill him. But they give him a test. Pickpocket this dummy that is covered in bells, and without a single bell trilling, you will be spared. He goes to pickpocket the dummy, fails miserably, bells go a-trillin'. Copinol, the gypsy leader, comes up with the suggestion of if any of the gypsy women are willing to marry him, he will be spared. So all of the gypsy women look at him like, pass. Then Esmeralda comes up, and she says, I will marry him. So they break a pitcher and they are married. So Gringois is already romanticizing all of this and is hit with a very rude awakening when Esmeralda takes him back to the house and then wants nothing to do with him. And this is where the story starts diverging from the very beautiful, accurate story that it was up until this point. Because Gringois makes an advance on Esmerelda and she shuts him down immediately. But then she explains that she is in love with another named Phoebus, and she is very sorry to Gringois, and she doesn't want to hurt his feelings. And him, recovering from his hurt very quickly, goes, "Oh, that's okay, I'll love you like a sister if that's what you want." And the two of them hug and then are like the best of friends, which is not what happened. So they become like brother-sister BFF. And from there, the story just kind of keeps going downhill. So then there's another scene where there is a party of sorts that Esmerelda and Gringois are to perform at. Esmerelda sees Phoebus there, and still being head over heels for the guy, walks with him happily away from the party. He starts talking to her of love. Frollo, who's there, who is madly in love with the gypsy, sees the two of them walking off, and decides to follow them, and that is when Frollo stabs Phoebus and frames Esmerelda for it. But in the book, Phoebus recovers. In the movie, he doesn't. Phoebus is dead. Esmerelda gets framed and is going to court. In the book, when Esmerelda went to court, Gringois attended the hearing not knowing who was on trial, only knowing that he hadn't seen Esmerelda for a while. And when he realizes it's Esmerelda, he goes, "Oh no, how sad that she's being tried for murder. I wonder what they're gonna do with her goat." In the movie, Gringois hears that Esmerelda is being held on trial for murder, and he goes, "That's not right. Esmeralda's innocent. I must use the power of the printing press to prove that she's innocent." Like, what? This is honestly when the story really starts just kind of rolling off of the tracks. While she's in the middle of the trial, Gringois decides he needs to print flyers to rally the people that she's innocent. And in the middle of the trial, this is the only part of the movie where they veered off with Quasimodo's character, and I'm so angry about it because out of nowhere, Quasimodo bursts through the court doors and yells, "She's innocent! I killed him." That was actually the level of acting that just happened. And the crowd that is at this hearing just turns and looks at him and starts laughing, which is honestly my exact reaction to it as well, because it was so ridiculous and so unnecessary to put that bit in the movie, because it did not, there was no mention of it again in the movie. There was no nod back that had any sort of bearing at all. So that was the only part of the movie that I really didn't like Quasimodo in. Other than that, they got him pretty accurate. Jump forward a little more. Esmerelda is in the cathedral. The gypsies are trying to break down the cathedral doors to save her, and Gringois is going at 100 miles an hour, trying to make pamphlets and distribute them among the people of Paris to prove to King Louis, who plays a way bigger part in this movie than he did in the book, that Esmerelda is innocent, and the people of Paris now agree with him that they're innocent because he passed around these flyers that he made with the printing press. And through other events that I will get back to, King Louis agrees with Gringois. The two of them go right smack dab in the middle of the fight in front of Notre Dame, step up onto the top of the steps and go, "Stop fighting, stop fighting." King Louis is like, "Esmerelda, come out of the cathedral." And so she comes all out like, "I don't want to die." And he's like, "Esmerelda is free. I pardon her of a crime she didn't commit." Then Esmerelda and Gringois get on this chariot, and Esmerelda looks at him and she's like, "Oh, Gringois, I was so foolish for loving Phoebus. I know he never truly loved me. I should have loved you instead." And Gringois is like, "Yeah, you should have, but it's okay because I saved you." Then the two of them ride on this chariot into the sunset. I kid you not. Let me explain why I'm so dumbfounded by that ending. They had been so accurate about certain things, and with some of the scenes in this movie, they were so willing to show how cruel the book is that I thought for sure they would have the ending be fairly accurate to the book as well. The ending of the book is night and day to the ending of the movie. Everybody dies at the end of the book, except for Gringois, who steals the goat last second and basically dooms Esmerelda to death. But now, I'm going to talk about Frollo and Jehan, his younger brother, because this part of the movie, these two characters are what makes this movie worth watching, because let me tell you, the writing for these two characters is horrendous. In the book, Frollo is a priest. He is madly in love with Esmerelda. He is the one who raised Quasimodo, and he spends basically the entire book lusting after Esmerelda and fighting with like the good and bad inside of him, the bad gaining ground until the very end. And Frollo also has in the book a younger brother named Jehan. And Jehan is, for all intents and purposes, Jehan is a party animal college student who spends all of his money on booze and women and only sees Frollo when he needs money. That's basically Frollo's little brother. In the movie, they decided to basically flip names around like they didn't mean anything. The characters in the movie, Frollo and his brother Jehan, Frollo in the movie is an older priest who is very learned, very wise, a good priest who follows the rules. They made Jehan the Frollo character that we all know. Basically, the only things they got correct about these two characters is that they're brothers. Everything else they were like, nobody likes them anyway. The character that they named Jehan, which I think in the movie they pronounce it more like John, but I don't know the French accent, so I'm just gonna keep saying Jehan. Jehan they made to be the Frollo character that we know. So they decided to make him, instead of a priest, a judge. So he is the judge in charge of condemning Esmerelda for the murder that he very well knows she did not commit. There are two main parts of the movie where these two interact that are just mind-bogglingly bad writing. And for the sake of this video and my sanity, when I'm saying Frollo, I am referring to the one lusting after Esmerelda who is in charge of Quasimodo, who commits the murder of Phoebus and condemns Esmeralda to die. That's Frollo. If I say his older brother Jehan, for the sake of this video, that's referring to the priest good guy. Okay? Okay. So their first awful interaction happens after Frollo stabs Phoebus and kills him. He comes back to the cathedral where his older brother Jehan is. The conversation basically goes like this. Brother, I've done something awful. Whatever it is, you can tell me, brother. No, I've done something so bad I don't even think you would forgive me for it. Whatever it is, brother, I'm behind you. We can make it right. Well, you know that gypsy girl? I'm in love with her. So I decided to kill her boyfriend. That is pretty bad. But he deserved it, and she deserves to die too, because she's the one causing me to lust after her, and that's devilry. That's not right, brother. You should probably try to do better. How could you say that? I am in the right. I need to kill her to make this right. That's definitely not right, brother. But if you think that, then we can't be brothers anymore. If that is the only way, then that's the only way. He literally said, we can't be brothers anymore. They're not 5. That's how that conversation went. So moving on to later in the story, gypsies are breaking down the cathedral walls, trying to get to Esmeralda to rescue her, right? Gringois going around trying to pass out these flyers to get everybody to rally around him. Frollo is with the king, and he is saying, the printing press is a bad thing, sir. You shouldn't let people read. And the king is like, I don't see how it could be so bad. And then all these flyers start getting around and people start getting angry at the king for making the decision to kill the girl who is condemned to die for the murder that she apparently committed. And he's like, oh, people are mad at me now because they're reading and thinking for themselves. Interesting. Suddenly, Frollo's older brother, the priest, bursts through the door, and that conversation goes a little something like this. King, you can't let the girl die. She's innocent. What do you mean she's innocent? What are you talking about? Esmerelda, she didn't kill Phoebus. You are going to be killing an innocent girl. You seem so sure that she's innocent, you must know who did it. Uh, well, spit it out. Who did it? Who killed him? Brother, do you have anything to say? Well, spit it out, you two. What's going on? Fine. I killed Phoebus, and I would do it again. I have no words for how ridiculous these scenes are. Now, I will admit, this second dramatic retelling, I did dramatize it slightly more than the movie, so if you watch the movie hoping to see them silently argue behind the king's back, that's not gonna be there, but that's basically what happened. So, Frollo runs off after claiming he would happily kill Phoebus again. The king sends guards once he realizes that Frollo was guilty, and as Frollo runs out the door, conveniently, Gringois was waiting outside, so he comes in and further convinces the king that Esmerelda is innocent. And that is when they go to the cathedral, pardon Esmeralda of all faults, all the gypsies are like, yay! And Esmeralda and Gringois ride off into the sunset. That is the 1939 Hunchback of Notre Dame. I did not know this movie existed until not that long ago, and when I watched it, I was dumbfounded by these scenes. If you've read the book, there's just such a strong contrast between how amazingly, impressively accurate they got so much of the movie to the book, and then just how absolutely comically wrong and twisted they got other parts of it. And I thought about not making this video because I didn't want to be mean, but at the same time, it was just, it's so bad. Like, anybody else who read The Hunchback of Notre Dame, like, you have to watch this movie just to watch how ridiculous some of these scenes are. So I hope you have enjoyed this sort of Hunchback of Notre Dame bunny trail that I've been on the last few weeks. I am slowly reeling myself back in to less isolated content, I guess. I could easily make a whole nother video on The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but I'm not going to for a while. If you have any other like classic literature that you really like that was turned into a movie and you want it analyzed, or specifically if you want to know the original stories behind Disney movies, to see the contrast of Disney's happy fairy tale version and these original awful, grim stories, let me know and I would happily look into finding those original stories and reading them and making comparison videos, because I thoroughly enjoyed doing this with The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I did not expect to love this book as much as I do, which is why I've spent 3 videos talking about it, but I would happily do this for some of the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. Also with, I think it's Hans Christian Andersen made a book called, is it The Snow Queen? I think is what it's called, which is the basis of where Frozen came from. Hence Hans Christian Andersen, Hans Christoph Anna Sven. So if you're interested in any sort of videos like that, please let me know in the comments, but I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!